Average Dude has something to say about...
Everybody, welcome back. Today's going to be another discussion. I actually promised that I was going to do this and I got sidetracked because of Halloween. I did an episode discussing that, and well, I promised that I was going to go over maladaptive daydreaming disorder in greater detail. Okay, this is the issue where you have people, and we've all met them, the people that are daydreaming a lot more than regular, average run-of-the-mill people. Their head's in the clouds, and occasionally, like if they're walking, they'll kind of have a facial expression, or they'll mumble to thin air. Nobody's there, they can't help it. They're so lost in thought that there's that momentary blip where they're kind of just talking out loud. And it's bizarre, we've all noticed it, and we love to pretend that it doesn't exist. I've discussed this in detail because I think it is ridiculously harmful for everybody to pretend like we don't notice this. It's an elephant in the room that doesn't make any sense, because what it all boils down to, it's a war on creativity, and we've been waging this war for a long time. For the few that have discussed this, the professionals, they focus on what they call daydreaming triggers. And it's the usual triggers. It's the books, television, movies, music, and video games, ad nauseum, and I've heard it my entire life. It's basically, what they all have in common is that every single one of these triggers is the end result of creativity being used. And you're not going to be able to truly understand maladaptive daydreaming disorder. I call it excessive daydreaming. You're not going to be able to understand it, or daydreaming in general, if you are focusing on the end result of creativity rather than the creative process in and of itself and what starts it. And we need to stop thinking in terms of these stupid triggers that we have all heard for so long. And all I see online are these idiot professionals that get up here and do I'll tell you exactly what maladaptive daydreaming is, and they have the cures, and they're full of crap. I've already discussed why these cures will all eventually fail. I'm the only one that's done that so far. I'm the only one that has ever discussed the worst enemy of these people that excessively daydream being free time, spare time. If they have a bunch of free time and everybody in the family leaves the house and leaves them to themselves, they end up pace, and they end up wasting the entire time, doing very little other than daydreaming, and occasionally, or something of that nature. But they're not they're just daydreaming. Because when they're given the freedom to do so, spare time, they're going to waste that time. That's just how it is. I was the only one to talk about that. I'm the only one so far to talk about and really repeatedly focus on stress is the trigger that does the most harm, because daydreams born from anxiety, especially with excessive daydreamers, they build up and they constantly run through all these scenarios in their head over and over and over and over and over again. And you got to figure, when it's something serious like having really bad news, and it always seems to happen at the end of a business day on Friday, you have the entire weekend to stress and constantly go over and over and over and over and over. This is the type that where these people go out and I have to clear my head to go for a walk, and then they get lost. Some of them have admitted online they get lost, and you have to understand why. When you are that lost in thought over something that really troubles you, it's easy to see why. Or headaches, migraines, or upset stomachs. But we always focus on books, television, movies, and music and video games. We need to start focusing on triggers. So what exactly is a trigger when you think about it? Simply put, a trigger is nothing more than anything that inspires a daydream. So that covers a lot of ground. Dr. Eli Sommer, I was the first to refer to this as excessive daydreaming years ago when I first started talking about this. And after a while, finally, Dr. Sommer is watching my videos. He's definitely watched at least one. And he's finally recently started referring to what he coined the phrase maladaptive daydreaming disorder, and he's now referring to it as excessive daydreaming. You're welcome, Sommer, by the way, you and your colleagues. And I would encourage his colleagues and him and anyone else for that matter to watch these videos that I do on this subject and listen to what I am about to say. Okay? Because I need to say this once again. If we are ever to truly uncover the truth about excessive daydreaming, then we need to stop focusing and regurgitating the same triggers. In other words, the end results of creativity as it is used and actually implemented into something like movies and video games. Is that we need to start focusing on what creates and starts all this in the first place. There are other triggers like stress, and I have another one that I'm going to talk about. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I doubt that you're going to be ready for this. Nobody ever thinks about this one. Memories. Yeah. So you're probably wondering why I would say that memories are a trigger for daydreaming. Okay, we have a problem acknowledging that the elephant in the room, that the excessive daydreamers exist, and we've all seen these people. We have a problem talking about daydreams in general and creativity. So would it really be a surprise that we're so immature and we are doing so much damage? We need to be frank and honest about daydreams. And you know what? Memories also trigger daydreams. Think about this for a moment, all right? You walk down memory lane, or let's just say for a moment, have you ever noticed how there's those places that you remember being there as a kid, like a park of some type, or a lake, or some type of outdoor thing, but you can't remember where it was at all, and then your parents take you there after, years and years, and you're like, whoa, I used to be here when I was a kid, right? Yeah, what's the name of this place? Because you forget. Now, the memory of you being at this place is there, but you don't remember what these places are. Or what was the name of that ice cream shop or that pizza place or whatever. All right? Memories. They never simply stop at being memories. You remember, but then you start to move into daydreaming territory. You remember what happened when you were there, but then, and this is really subtle, and people need to really be honest and admit that it definitely happens to me. You start to think to yourselves, what would it be like if, like, say, like I'm a parent. What would it have been? What would my kids think of this? Or my wife, or people that weren't around back in the day when I was young and I was at these places. Like, what would it be? You start to daydream and wonder what it would be like introducing the next, like, say, the children, your children, the next generation, introducing them to the things that you were introduced to. So it's no longer just a memory; it becomes a daydream. Think of all the potential here. Think of your old stomping grounds, like the playgrounds that you used to play at, or the stores that you used to go to and maybe buy like baseball cards or comic books or what have you. Or even, let's just say, like if you went to the pool, the memories that you have of the pool, and you're starting to remember what it was like doing tricks off the high diving board, and then you start to think of, well, these people that you're friends with now that didn't know you when you were young doing these tricks, then you start to daydream and think, what would they think of you doing those tricks? Or if you're even still able to do those tricks. I mean, come on, we all do this. We all do, and we're so ashamed, and we shouldn't be. This is normal. Everybody daydreams and everybody does this. Everybody daydreams about their memories. You walk down a photograph, an old photograph, oh my God. Think about the memories that are triggered when you're going through the old family photo albums from back home. And for those of you that have either moved from the place that, your first home when you were a kid, or if you're like me and you had a parent die, and then the old home that you grew up in had to be sold through like a share, like an estate sale. It's someone else's home, and you cannot really go back. It's done. You will never ever forget the last time you were there. at your old home. All the hiding places you used to have. All the places you used to daydream. Is it? Yeah, you end up, your memory remembering how things were when you were a kid, daydreaming, maybe hiding from your parents in the coat closet, and then daydreaming. You might be remembering that. You might be daydreaming about what if your kids do something like you did when you were young. Stuff like that. Think about it. All those hiding, or the scary places, like you go down in the basement and it's dark, and it's if you have those steps where they don't have like a solid backing behind them and you can see right through, and you there's always that fear when you're a kid that there's some creature or somebody standing right behind looking through. Not trying to freak anybody out, but think about this for a moment. All these memories were a tree that used to hang around, or just a corner, every nook and cranny. You remember, and then you end up daydreaming. I mean, I have kids, and I wonder, what if they would have, back then, in the 70s and 80s, how they would have reacted, and what kind of an impact growing up in the setting that I did would have had on them. We all do this. Memories are unique triggers because they often require a trigger of their own. Like I said, a place, a person, someone from long ago, a place, like an old favorite hangout, or like a photograph, or old toys, or old knickknacks, or decorations from the holidays. Memories are very subtle yet powerful daydreaming triggers. They are only damaging based upon the nature and emotion behind the memory. And I promised I was going to go over child abuse. I don't go over many personal things in my own life. Child abuse is definitely one of them, and I think it's about time that I discuss, I hope Somer and his crew and everyone else are watching this next one especially, because there is a correlation between, a relationship between excessive daydreaming in the maladaptive daydreamers and child abuse, or abuse in general. And it's very easy to understand why, especially if you've been abused and lucky enough to have gotten through it. Everybody take care.